Sunday, January 16th is Walrein Community Day, and the special exclusive community attack Walrein's getting is Icicle Spear and Powdered Snow. And we finally have the data mine on Icicle Spear. It is the old Weather Ball, 60 damage for 35 energy cost, which is insane. Pair that with Powder Snow for good energy gains, Walrein's massive bulk and decent defensive subtyping with the water type, and access to Earthquake, which is basically completely unresisted coverage, aside from one Pokemon in particular, which isn't going to be walling anything in PvP. Yeah, Walrein's looking pretty insane. In fact, it's going to be a powerhouse in all 4 PvP metas. Great League, Ultra League, Master League, and Little Cup. Walrein is going to be a force to be reckoned with. So to help you best prepare your Walrein for these PvP metas, I have for you here the Walrein PvP IV Deep Dive, covering Great League, Ultra League, and Master League, and I'll also talk about Little Cup a little bit there too. I'll also be talking about Waterfall Walrein on top of it, and I will also talk about Shadow Walrein as well. So without further ado, let's get into every single Walrein. By the way, if you want to reference any of the information covered in this video in a text-based format, link in the description, of course, to my article on GamePress covering all this information in a text-based format. Also, if this is your first time seeing a PvP IV deep dive from me, I will be talking about the true stats of a Pokemon a lot, which can be a little bit confusing. If you do want to know the true stats of your Pokemon, you can use IV checking apps such as PokeGenie or Kelki IV. You can also use websites like Go Stadium or PvPIVs.com or PvPoke itself. And then after I talk about the stats and stuff, I will be showing and linking to PvP IV tables to make it even more simple for you. So it's going to sound a little scary and complicated, but I think you guys are going to figure out a little bit along the way. Of course, you should check out my PvP IVs simplified video as well if you want to get brought up in your PvP IV knowledge, feet wet before getting into this deep stuff here with Walrein. When it comes to Walrein in the Great League, for its IVs, it has 2 main priorities. Priority 1, getting those sweet, delicious attack breakpoints, and then priority 2 is maintaining enough bulk where it doesn't lose all those other matchups and drop its consistency, right? When it comes to the attack breakpoints in particular, 1 stands out from the pack as being the most important. So important that even people that don't believe in attack breakpoints and say high stat product is the way to go 100% of the time, except when it isn't, it's going to be the 113.77 attack, giving you a breakpoint on all Azumarill. With this breakpoint on Powdered Snow, you are able to straight Earthquake all Azumarills in even shield scenarios for the win, including Play Rough Azumarills. So that's a pretty big deal right there. This breakpoint was actually first discovered by PvPoke himself, the Matt Dynamite, if you will, the Empoleon master. So kudos to him for highlighting this and pointing it out to me and helping me get started on my Walrein PvP IV deep dive here. But yeah, this is a really big one, really important for Walrein. I mean, consistently beating Azumarill as a ice water Pokemon, that's some pretty big news right there. For even higher attack break points, we do have a Greedent one at 113.93, which can enable the 1-1 shield scenario, straight Icicle Spear, which is nice, and it can potentiate the 2-2 shield scenario straight Icicle Spear as well, but for that match to close out, it is a little bit dependent on the Greedent IVs in response to your IVs too. The 2-2 shield scenario can be dicey, but obviously having the Powdered Snow breakpoint on Greedent definitely makes the 2-2 shield scenario fall a little bit more in Walrein's favor. Then for an even higher attack breakpoint, we do have the 114.11 breakpoint, which is pretty consistent for the Wish Cache. Wish caches are usually a little bit more defensively weighted, so that's why I'm recommending 114.11 instead of the 112.38. 112.38 is effective against the rank 1 Wish Cache, high stat product, but 114.11 is for those more defensively weighted Wish Caches. The general recommendation is to have a more defensively weighted Wish Cache, so having that slightly higher attack. Prepare for the guys that prepare for you. Am I right? But with that, you do get some nice farm down scenarios, and you do potentiate the 1-2 shield scenario, so you spend 1 shield, they spend 2 shields, and you're still able to beat Wish Cache, so that's pretty nice. And then the highest attack weight I will recommend for Walrein here is going to be the 114.46, which does potentiate some Diggersby farm down scenarios, and could potentiate some like low shield wins as well, depending on, you know, if they tried to bait with Earthquake and failed, or landed a Fire Punch instead of got it shield baited there or something like that. Basically, you just destroy Diggersby harder. And when it comes to these farm down scenarios, the best way to visualize it is in these situations, normally you'd have to throw the charge move to close out the fight because they would just be able to reach that KOing charge move. But here, the chances of you just beating them with your fast move damage is a lot higher, which means you could bank up that Icicle Spear or bring yourself closer to an Earthquake for the next Pokemon that comes in, which obviously has some good benefits. Because Diggersby kind of wax and wanes from the meta a little bit, going for this high of an attack weight, might not be a priority for you, but I do feel that going for at least the 114.11 is a pretty good goal to set for yourself when it comes to Walrein IVs. Now with these attack weights, you are also picking up breakpoints on Swampert, Alola Ninetales, Hypno, and Pidgeot as well, but the lowest of these attack weights, the 113.77, should pick it up on most of them, and if those Pokemon do happen to have like some crazy high defense weight, then the 114.11 will still encompass the majority of them as well. So, there are the good breakpoints, and then you also get some other cool stuff along with it. Ain't that nice? So all these attack breakpoints are nice, but how low can we go on defense? And just as a general recommendation, I feel like being above 112 defense is probably a good idea. Around 112 defense is when you start picking up a lot of minor breakpoints from opponents, right? And none of them really do seem to be game flipping for the most part. But taking one extra damage here, one extra damage there, and then extra damage from the charge moves on top of it, that overall will probably hurt Walrein's consistency. So I really wouldn't want to dump on defense, much lower than 113, and definitely try to stay above 112 defense. Now, if you do want some concrete examples to pay attention to, 113.29 defense can help avoid a breakpoint from Sableye. Doesn't flip the matchup, but obviously taking less Shadow Claw damage from Sableye is definitely a good thing. Now, this isn't like a super high attack weight Sableye. This defense breakpoint is based off of the highest attack recommendation that I had from my Sableye PvP IV deep dive, link up above and in the description if you haven't checked that one out. But due to the poor IV control that Purified Sableye can have, you may be facing opponents that have higher attack weights. You may also be facing opponents that have lower attack weights. So, having a bit lower defense than 113.29 probably wouldn't hurt things too much. Having more defense than 113.29 could also help things as well. But the Purified Sableye matchup isn't like super dire for Walrein where you absolutely need to have that defense breakpoint. One high-end defense breakpoint that does stand out is the 114.75, which can get you defense breakpoint against Umbreon, the rank 1 Umbreon in particular, which can enable you to get the 1 shield scenario and the 2 shield scenario fairly consistently with Walrein. Problem is that this defense breakpoint is based on the rank 1 Umbreon, which is like very, very low attack stat Umbreon. So if you're up against an Umbreon that has slightly higher attack than that, well then obviously that's going to cause some problems for your Walrein there because you're probably not getting the defense breakpoint anymore. In fact, when it came to my Umbreon PvP IV deep dive, I was recommending a high defense weighted Umbreon, and because of how PvP IVs work, if you have a higher defense weight than the rank 1, then you're also going to have a higher attack weight than the rank 1 as well, and it can make that defense breakpoint unchaseable for Walrein. So I think it's something to have like in the back of your mind, or it could be a good reason to maybe pursue a very high defense weighted Walrein, but it could be something that's unchaseable and something that probably isn't that worth worrying about. That said, I do have some high defense Walreins I will be recommending once I get to the canned IV section here. Then when it comes to the HP, nothing stood out in a really big way in a lot of different scenarios. Recommending HP in PvP IV deep dives is already kind of difficult because, a little prior damage or a little extra energy on one side or the other can really influence how much a specific HP check is going to matter for Walrein. But just doing bulk simulations at different HP weights, I found that 148 HP was coming up most often in even energy scenarios for Walrein as being important. So when it comes to the PvP IV tables, I will be using 148 as the cutoff. Of course, if you do feel more comfortable with less HP, which you could feel comfortable with, then that's perfectly alright. But having that higher HP definitely can help out, and having more HP than 148 can also help out as well. How clear is it how much more or less HP is going to hurt you or help you? Not very clear. But 148, that's the pin I'm dropping on this one here. So here we have the canned PvP IVs for Walrein meeting at least the Azumarill attack check, the 113 defense check, and then the 148 HP check as well, linked in the description, of course. And this table here is also customizable, so if you do want a higher defense, HP, or attack weight, or lower in any of these respects to increase your options or refine your options, you can always toggle that down here, right? So the attack, the defense, the HP, you can mess with these numbers, changes the table, but to see all the numbers, you will have to change like top 100 to like top 1000 to see them all. It just automatically does the top when you link to it. So I also have other tables linked as well for you. For example, this one has the Diggersby attack weight with the 148 HP and the 113 defense. So there's only 41 splits that do this, and we're riding pretty high here. Rank 358 to meet all these checks. So obviously you are going to be dropping a good amount of bulk to go for this higher attack weight. So it does make the Azumarill one look pretty appealing. Of course, at the end of the day, you could just evolve multiple Walreins for Great League PvP and then use whichever one makes the most sense to you based on the meta that you're approaching as well. So what about Waterfall Walrein in Great League PvP? Any special breakpoints that make more sense for that? Well, nothing really came up for defense and HP, so you could just go with the current defense and HP recommendations for the Powder Snow Walrein. When it comes to the attack weight, obviously there's going to be different priorities there because it's a completely different attack with completely different breakpoints. The most important or most relevant attack breakpoint I found for it was about a 112.13 to 113.16 attack range, which gets you a breakpoint on Pidgeot. I think you'll be fine with the 112.13 or slightly above that. The 113.16 is based off of a max defense Pidgeot, and I don't think people are really building that one or aiming for that one, so you don't have to go that high on the attack. But yeah, with that, you're able to now overcome Pidgeot in even shield scenarios, where before you'd just lose to Pidgeot because you have Waterfall and not Powdered Snow, right? So pretty important attack breakpoint. Another interesting attack breakpoint as well will be at 114.62 attack, which gets a breakpoint on Talonflame. And with this breakpoint, your Waterfall Walrein can beat Talonflame in the one shield scenario, just straight Waterfall, and you clip them from reaching their second charge move. So if they throw Flame Charge, they won't reach that second Flame Charge, which gives you a nice amount of HP and a ton of energy going into the next Pokemon in. And that energy will always be useful because Walrein has neutral coverage against every single Pokemon except for one little guy that you will never see in PvP. And of course, linked down below in the description are the PvP IV tables to help you navigate which IV splits hit these stat checks. When it comes to Ultra League PvP, the IV recommendations for Walrein is going to be a little bit different because in the Great League, Walrein is going to be a powerful option, right? But it's not it's a big deal, but it's not a super crazy big deal, right? When it comes to Ultra League PvP though, Walrein is a huge deal. It's the #1 deal when it comes to Ultra League PvP, especially the Ultra League Premier Cup Classic. Walrein is just going to completely dominate that meta, and I know that PvPoke favors, the perfect baiting, scenarios there, and Walrein's going to do a little bit less consistently when it fails its baits. But even with failing its baits, Walrein is going to be such a massive deal in Ultra League PvP, especially the Premier Cup Classic, that the main priority for Walrein is going to be the mirror matchup. And all of Walrein's mirror matchups, or at least the majority of them, end on the charge move, which means charge move priority is going to be a huge deal for the Ultra League Walrein, and kind of is the main focus when it comes to Walrein PvP IVs, is which IVs do I need to dominate the mirror matchup. And of course there are breakpoints that happen along the way, and ironically enough, the majority of these breakpoints are encompassed by going for the charge move priority Walrein, so it kind of all works out in the end, right? Now, when it comes to how much defense and HP you want to have, there isn't a huge guiding principle here for Walrein because a lot of it is just CMP based, and then outside of CMP, it's just kind of dominating everything else. But there is an interesting scenario that comes up in the 0-0 shield scenario specifically for the mirror matchup where you're just throwing Earthquakes. If you have too low of a defense and HP stat, then higher bulk Walreins can survive your Earthquake, and then they just beat you down with Powdered Snow and then have energy for the next Pokemon that's in, which means you effectively lose that mirror matchup even though you have that higher attack weight. So I found that the defense HP range that you want to have to survive more often than not to either win or tie the 0-0 matchup there is going to be 145.3 defense and 197 HP. So having as high of attack as you possibly can while maintaining that defense and that HP check. Now when it comes to the PvP IVs for Walrein that do that, there's only 11 of them. And the one that has the highest attack weight is going to be the 7-10-10, the rank 404. It'll meet that defense and HP check and have that higher attack weight, so you're able to get CMP on all other Walreins that don't have that, higher attack weight than that. And if they do have a higher attack weight than the 7-10-10s, well then they're not going to be surviving that zero shield scenario. So yeah, you won some mirrors, but you didn't win all the mirrors. Did you, mister? And then to make this situation even more confusing, the 8-12-12 IV, the rank 343, might be slightly better because it has like the precise attack defense composition where it's actually able to flip that zero shield scenario against the 7-10-10 instead of tie it, where the other attack defense HP weighted ones just tie it. Yeah, the 8-12-12 can actually flip it right back, which may make it arguably better than the 7-10-10 when it comes to this specific situation. But of course, when it comes to the 1 shield and the 2 shield situations, well, the 7-10-10 will have the charge move priority. This whole like mirror defense HP attack shenanigans reminds me a lot of the Trevenant PvP IV deep dive, where basically this exact kind of scenario came up for Trevenant, where you want to make sure you have like the big attack, but you also don't want to thrift too much on the defense and HP, or it starts causing you problems in the mirror as well. Now when it comes to the defense recommendation as well, there is like an important defense breakpoint at about like 143.89 to 144.98 defense for Gyarados, allowing you to take less damage from its Dragon Breaths and its Dragon Tails on top of it. So it's kind of nice that's like the most relevant defense breakpoint I could find for Walrein, and we're already meeting it by trying to be like optimal in the mirror matchup, right? So that's pretty cool. And then as far as dropping below 143 defense goes, it generally isn't recommended because that's when you start picking up that handful of other breakpoints that don't exactly matter in the even situations, but taking a little extra damage here and there can overall hurt your general consistency. And then as far as the HP recommendations go, I don't really have a clear-cut HP recommendation beyond the 197 helping out in the 0-0 scenario, but that is such like a highly specific scenario and specific HP stat that going a little bit higher or lower might not be that big of a deal. Of course, going lower could be a big deal in the 0-0 shield scenario specifically. And then to validate these attack weights even further, it's not just about CMP, guys. At 144.42 attack, you get a breakpoint on most Gyarados, giving you some consistency in that matchup, allowing you to clip it from getting charge moves. 145.91 does the same thing against Swampert. 146.06 can also do the same thing against Alolan Muck. 146.66 also does that against Crobat, so Crobat can't Poison Fang into Shadow Ball. It has to choose. Is it going to double Fang or is it going to throw Shadow Ball? You limit its options. You limit its outs by going for the 146.66 on Crobat. And then 147.38 is for Greedent, helping you better dominate it in the 1-1 shield scenario. And then 147.45 is the attack weight of the rank 343. So if you go above that, you can get CMP on those smart Walreins there. And then 147.75 is the attack weight of the rank 404, the quote-unquote best mirror matchup Walrein. Well, outside of the 0-0 shield scenario, if you got a higher attack weight than that, then you will get charge move priority on it in the 1 and 2 shield scenarios, allowing you to potentially beat it in the 1 and 2 shield scenarios. So here we have the 11 IV splits that are able to either win or tie the 0-0 shield scenario, so the mighty 11, if you will. And these are only 11 PvP IV splits out of like 4,096 or something like that. So chances are you won't get these specific PvP IVs, and if you don't feel too bad about it. It's not the end of the world. It's just consistency in the 0-0 shield scenario specifically. There are other shield scenarios that are worth worrying about that aren't based off of this, right? And then to give you some more clarity to the Walrein mirror matchup, if it's even energy, if you throw Icicle Spear and they shield it, then you are able to get such an amazing win over the other Walrein that you could save a shield. So if they spend a shield on Icicle Spear, like you'll still CMP tie them to like the KOing attack, and you'll be able to beat them like almost no matter what, which is pretty ridiculous. And if you throw Icicle Spear and they don't shield it, then that sets you back so far behind that they could just no shield your next attack and still probably dominate you. So yeah, outside of the 0-0 shield scenario, things get really dicey when it comes to the Walrein mirror matchup. It's going to be an ugly mirror for sure, and based on the performance in the mirror, it could either make or break you when it comes to matchups, especially in the Ultra League Premier Cup, where I expect Walrein to basically be everywhere. So study those mirror matchups accordingly if you are whipping out the Walrein, because it's pretty dire. And then here are an additional 10 PvP IV splits for Walrein that have a higher attack stat than the 147.75, and then also still have good defense and HP to at least tie the 0-0 mirror matchup rather than win it. So winning the 0-0, that's nice, but if you can't do that and you happen to have one of these 10 splits, then hey, you get CMP on most other Walrein, and you at least tie the 0-0 should that situation come up. So I think that's a pretty good consolation prize. And if the opposing Walrein, for whatever reason, has some damage on it ahead of time, then you could maybe even win that situation as well. So not exactly a loss all the time. And of course, link in the description to these PvP IV tables so you can ogle them and manipulate them yourself. And then when it comes to Waterfall Walrein in Ultra League PvP, it's not that good. Like, it makes sense to have Waterfall Walrein for a Great League PvP because there's so many different cup formats where Waterfall could probably be better at some point or another. But for Ultra League PvP, I really don't see that coming up, so I didn't spend the time looking into specific attack breakpoints for Waterfall. That said, if Waterfall Walrein does become a thing, well, the Walrein mirror matchup still exists, and having the higher attack weight so you can get charge move priority is still going to be, you know, an important goal to set for Walrein, and the defense breakpoints are going to be the same as well. So you could probably just follow the recommendations for Powder Snow Walrein, and then things would probably work out for Waterfall Walrein just as well. And then I also do want to make a quick note about the rank 1 or like high stat product Walrein in especially in the Ultra League, where it's not so much about the breakpoints, it's more about the CMP. If you go for the higher bulk Walrein, you could throw off opponents expecting you to have less bulk and a higher attack weight, which could benefit the Walrein. And then if you know personally that because you have like the rank 1 Walrein or something, you're always going to lose CMP ties, well then you could just bake that into your strategy as well, rather than trying to compete with other Walrein's attack stats. So going for a high stat product, a high bulk Walrein, like isn't a bad idea either. It's just going for these higher attack ones could allow you to get some cheeky advantages. So obviously evolving like 2 Walreins, one that's a high attack stat and then one that's like high stat product, could allow you to, you know, participate in the best of both worlds as you see fit in Ultra League PvP. And then finally we have the Master League. And when it comes to IV recommendations in the Master League, the format's a bit different than the other leagues because the other leagues are capped at CP, which means your attack, your defense, and your HP can change wildly based on what your IVs are. When it comes to Master League PvP, you're capped at the level, which means that you always want to have a 100% IV Pokemon. But of course, there are like 4,096 different IV spreads, so the chances of you getting the hundo for Walrein are quite low, all things considered. So the IV recommendations here are for what like the minimum cutoffs are. Like how much can you thrift on your attack, your defense, or your HP before it starts to become a problem, right? How can you be the functional hundo, if you will? So when it comes to the attack stat, 15 attack does get you CMP in the mirror matchup, and it also gets you that 1 extra damage on your Earthquake, which can allow you to overcome Kyogre in some situations. It is kind of a meme because you do have to, you know, bait the Icicle Spear and land the Earthquakes, but it's that one little baby bit of extra damage in perfectly even scenarios against Kyogre that allows you to flip the fight, which is kind of ridiculous. So 15 attack, a little bit important there. Now, of course, if you don't have 15 attack, then the next breakpoint is going to be at 13 attack, which gets you a breakpoint against Giratina Origin Form, Groudon, Landorus Form, and Swampert. So if you are going to thrift on the attack, I really wouldn't want to go lower than a 13 attack IV. Then when it comes to the defense IV, 14 defense gives you a defense breakpoint against Giratina Altered Form, which can be nice. And if you're going to thrift lower than the 14 defense, then 12 defense gets you a breakpoint on Dragonite, Giratina Origin Form, Melmetal, and Togekiss. So 12 defense, perfectly okay. 14 defense does look to be a bit more consistent for Walrein. And then when it comes to the HP stat, HP once again is pretty hard to recommend. Like obviously more is better, and in Master League PvP, why wouldn't you want to have 15 HP? But if you had to sacrifice some HP just so you can meet like 15 attack and 14 defense, then I wouldn't want to go much lower than 12 HP. And the cute thing that you can do with at least a 12 HP IV is you can get 2 Icicle Spears against a Ho-Oh in the 0 shield scenario. So Ho-Oh throws the Brave Bird, and you'll have enough HP. You'll survive by just 1 HP, so you can throw 2 Icicle Spears at it, which is kind of funny. Now, how relevant is the Ho-Oh matchup going to be in the future? I mean, Ho-Oh is arguably going to be getting its signature move Sacred Fire soon-ish. I don't know when, but it's in the game traffic right now, so one day it's probably going to get its signature move. And with that move, it could change how this matchup plays out, so... But at the end of the day, do you really want to go like even lower on your HP stat? Also kind of questionable too, right? But yeah, if you need a number, you need a line drawn in the sand, that's the line. There it is, in the sand, 12 HP IV, SwagTips told you. So when it comes to the minimum IVs, the ideal minimum is going to be the 15, 14, 13. 13 instead of 12, because if you have a 14 defense IV instead of a 15 defense IV, then you take 1 extra damage from the Brave Bird, so you'll need 1 extra HP to maintain that Ho-Oh matchup. So yeah, 15, 14, 13 is the optimal minimum, if you will. So this suggests that the minimum IVs that you can go for being optimal would be the 15, 14, 13. 13 HP recommended instead of 12, because if you do have 14 defense, then you take 1 more Brave Bird damage from the Ho-Oh, so you need 1 more HP to make up for that. But obviously if this goofy Ho-Oh situation doesn't really matter to you, then the 13 or 12 HP doesn't even matter to begin with. And then, of course, you could thrift down to 13 attack IV2 and not get burned too much for it either. Similarly with going for a 12 defense IV. Of course, having higher IVs is always better. You want to have the hundo. But if you can't have the hundo, well, this is as low as you can go. So what about that Shadow Walrein, Mr. Swag? Well, when it comes to shadows versus normals, their attack and defense stats are completely different from each other, which means that they do have different breakpoints, different priorities, stuff like that. So given the time crunch here, I really didn't have time to comb over the PvP IVs for Shadow Walrein. Sorry guys. I mean, a lot of us don't even have a Shadow's Feel TM'd already. We don't have the frustration removed, so we can't even use Shadow Walrein at this capacity to begin with, but I just didn't have the time to do it, so sorry about that. When it comes to the Great League PvP, what I will say is that Shadow Walrein doesn't really seem to have any notable advantages over the Normal Walrein, so Shadow probably isn't that big of a priority there. You're probably not missing out on a whole lot when it comes to that. And then when it comes to Shadow Walrein in the Ultra League PvP, well, the IV recommendations are charge move priority based, so following those same exact recommendations for your Shadow Walrein, obviously you could have the same exact benefits, because the attack stats are going to be the same. The Shadow attack stat just has a multiplier, but CMP is based on the true attack stat. So it's like the Shadow Pokemon are coming in and they already have like a power-up punch or 2 in, basically. But when it comes to charge move priority, it's still going to use their base attack stat. So TLDR, the recommendations for Ultra League Normal Walrein probably line up perfectly for Ultra League Shadow Walrein, all things considered. Of course, I don't know for sure because I didn't really look into it. And then to add to it, Shadow Walrein is kind of a bigger deal in the Open Ultra League, because you will always be getting an attack breakpoint on Umbreon and Galar Stunfisk. Like, even if you have the lowest attack stat, you'll still get that breakpoint, and Normal Walrein can never get that breakpoint. And because you get that breakpoint, you flip those matchups more often than not, and then you also have basically the same level of performance as Normal Walrein does, all things considered, which makes the Shadow Walrein basically always better than the Normal Walrein in the Ultra League PvP, because of those 2 specific matchups being so important and so common, right? But when it comes to the Ultra League Premier Cup Classic, Normal Walrein is going to be just as good, probably better, because you have more IV control going on for your Normal Walrein, and it doesn't have, Galar Stunfisk or Umbreon to get an interesting advantage over. And then, of course, don't let that prevent you from playing Normal Walrein in Open Ultra League either. It is just those two matchups, so there are other niche advantages that the Normal can have as well. It's just that because of those two matchups, Shadow does look a bit better for Ultra League PvP. And then when it comes to Master League PvP, even if you had the Hundo Shadow Walrein, I don't really think it has too many significant advantages over the Normal Walrein. So the Normal Walrein is going to be the general recommendation still for the Master League, and it's a lot easier to get the Hundo Normal Walrein compared to the Hundo Shadow Walrein. That said, if you are the Shadow Hundo haver, there are some interesting matchup advantages the Shadow can have, which does give credence to using the Shadow in Master League PvP if you have it and those advantages appeal to you. And then just so I don't forget, Little Cup Walrein. Yeah, of course this thing's going to be good there too, right? Now it is only level 7, so it is pretty tiny, super tiny Walrein right there, but it does have like the same kind of stats as Swinub. And if you remember from the Little Jungle Cup, Swinub packs a pretty good punch and it is pretty bulky on top of it, and Walrein has a better defensive subtyping than the Swinub has. So Walrein could technically be better than Swinub in that respect and could be desirable for the Little Cup PvP format. So if you do have any super tiny, little tiny Spheals, don't forget to evolve them too, so you can have your Little Cup Walrein. And evolve 2 of them in case you want to run Waterfall. And then of course if you got little tiny Shadows, maybe evolve those ones too in case the Shadow variant ends up being better or something. All my Shadows are like level 8, so they're ironically too big for the Little Cup. It sucks to be me, right? And then as far as the IVs go on it, even if they don't hit like near 500 CP, make sure to check the stats anyway on PvPoke. I did notice that Walrein was having a lot of empty HP stats when it came to the Little Cup, probably because of the multiplier of such a low level Pokemon, being so high that, having like 14 or 13 for like an HP IV, where if the ideal is 15, ends up being the same HP anyways. So that's kind of confusing. Yeah, so that does it for the Walrein PvP IV deep dive. Of course, if you have any questions on this content, comment below, let me know what's up, and I'll be happy to help you out. And if you enjoyed this kind of content, you want to see more like it, well, make sure to subscribe to SwagTips. And then, of course, if you do want to reference any of this material in a text-based format, link in the description to my article on GamePress covering all of this information in a text-based format. Happy hunting, y'all. I'd also like to give a special shout out to these Patreon supporters. If you want to support Swagman on Patreon, link in the description. So what about Waterfall Walrein? And then when it comes to Waterfall Walrein,